Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giribharatari Gopijana Vallabha Giribharatari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Bonachari Tiravana-chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giribharatari Gopijana Vallabha Giribharatari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Bonachari Jamuna Tiravana-chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe. Jaya Nitya Sachinandana Gaura Hare, Jaya Nitya Sachinandana Gaura Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Premanande, Hare Haribo, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Jagananda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So, welcome to the Inishrath Sunday talk, which has been given from Dublin on Dublin Krishna Temple Facebook page. I'm aware that there is a huge amount of competition today, so I don't know if there will be many people listening. But yesterday we had a little group, a Bhakti Vriksha group, and we spoke on a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which is 4.10. So I thought it would probably be good to speak from that again. And then also to add two other verses, 9.13 and 9.14, talking about the devotees and how they're always chanting the names of Krishna. And they derive great satisfaction and bliss by always enlightening one another about Krishna. So we have Bhagavad Gita, it's Krishna talking. We can never never ceases to be amazed by the fact that that's Krishna who's talking to us and is giving us direction. The more that we study the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna book, the more we get the understanding that actually Krishna is there. I've been doing this for a long time now, because even when I was in college, we actually studied Bhagavad Gita, and it really impressed me. I never met the devotees at that time, but I used to study it myself at home, the first and second chapters of it. And I was just amazed, but it was a Pelican translation, but still there was something about it that I couldn't put my finger on. And I answered my questions in the exam on the Bhagavad Gita, and I got good marks. It was the only thing I got good marks on. But a few years after that, then I actually did meet the devotees, and then started to study Bhagavad Gita. Initially, I used to read it in the park opposite our house, and then I studied it up in the Botanic Gardens, where I'd studied all the other spiritual literature that I had listened to before that: Bible, Buddhist books, Heart Sutra, Diamond Sutra, Zen Buddhism, and Bhagavad Gita won out easily. It was like Science of Self-Realization. I used to have this picture of Srila Prabhupada in the front of that book. I used to have that in front of me when I was reading, and I could see that he was limitless. There was no limit to him, and he's the bona fide representative of Krishna. So, without further ado, I will read from the Bhagavad Gita again. It's from chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge. So, Transcendental Knowledge, this is coming straight after a very powerful verse as well. Several. Okay, I'll just read a couple of verses coming up to it. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhutanam adharmasya tadatmanam shujamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So when there's a predominant rise of irreligion, Krishna descends. So we're praying to the holy name to please help us deliver the holy name to people at large, because there is a predominant rise of irreligion, a massive. Materialism is the religion, and we're trying to explain, no, hold on, don't stop all this nonsense. You got to start putting God in the center of this, or else you'll go completely off the track. Next verse. Paritranaya sadunam vinishaya chaduskridam dharma sangstartana partaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. So Krishna comes to re-establish the principles of religion. So we're involved in that. That's our duty, our dharma in this age. Whatever else we are, Kiba Vipa, Kiba Nyasi Shudra Kenilaye, Krishna Tattva Vitse Guru Hai. That understanding we take from it is that, whether I'm a sannyasi, a Sudra, dog eater, anything, one who knows the science of Krishna can give Krishna consciousness to the world. So this is what we're giving. We're giving the holy name. We're bringing the chanting of the holy name throughout the society. That's our dharma. That's what we're meant to do as followers of Srila Prabhupada, followers of Rupa Goswami, and followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and followers of Krishna, whose book we're reading today. Sarva Dharma Parityaya Mamikam Shanambam Aham Tvam Sarva Papayo. Mukshikshami Masujaha. Just give up all of our other varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. So, and then an amazing verse. One who knows Janma Karma Chame Divyam Ivamyo Veti Tatvatha Tyaktva Dehem Punar Janma Naiti Namat Eti Soarjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving his body, take birth here again in this material world, but attains to my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So, although we do want to go to the spiritual world, at the point of death, we may or may not get there. I'm not even going to go into that discussion. Srila Prabhupada says it is possible. We shall have to individually wait until the point and see. But we can resurrect the spiritual world while here. We can spread the Sankirtan movement far and wide. We can take it upon ourselves to chant Hare Krishna in every opportunity that we get. And so this is what we do. We take from that. Even though Krishna is saying we can attain the abode at the end, which is incredible. But let's do it now. Let's attain the abode here and now. And chant Hare Krishna everywhere we can, whenever we get the opportunity. That's that's the mantra for the age. That's the yoga for the age. That's when Krishna is appearing to establish the principles of religion. That's what's happening. So we just chant Hare Krishna, and that's all automatically, achieved. So now on to today's verse. And I'll read the purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmana mama upashita bahavo jnana tapasa putamad bhavam agata, being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me. Many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So this is Krishna giving us absolute assurance, that we actually can achieve Krishna consciousness, we can achieve his association. And there's some things that we have to do in the meantime. We have to, these things, attachment, fear, and anger, being freed from. We have to become freed from these things. But Krishna tells us that many persons have done this in the past. So we can do it also. This is our birthright. This is our gotra coming from Srila Prabhupada. So, purport by Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. As described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily conception of life are so absorbed in materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand how the Supreme can be a person. Which materialists cannot even imagine that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge and eternally blissful. In a materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep the same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the Supreme to be impersonal. And because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again. And so they naturally prefer a kind of emerging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entities to bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. This is the highest perfection of spiritual existence, attainable without individual personality. This is a kind of fearful stage of life, devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all, being embarrassed by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation. They become disgusted or angry and foolishly conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. Such people are in a diseased condition of life. Some people are too materially attached and therefore they do not give attention to spiritual life. Some of them want to merge into the supreme spiritual cause, and some of them disbelieve in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. This last class of men take to the shelter of some kind of intoxication, and their effective hallucinations are sometimes accepted as spiritual vision. One has to get rid of all three stages of attachment to the material world: negligence of spiritual life, fear of spiritual identity, and a conception of void that arises from frustration in life. To get free from these three stages of material conception of life, one has to take complete shelter of the Lord, guided by the bona fide spiritual master, and follow the disciplines and regulative principles of devotional service. The last stage of devotional service is called bhava, or transcendental love of Godhead. I'll just break up there because in the second part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada starts to talk about other points. But I just want to summarize again the three different stages. The first stage is a person who is so materially attached, they're not even bothered to think any further. They're too engrossed in spiritual enjoyment. Happy as pigs, that's the description. They're as happy as pigs, because pigs just oink away, and they eat the stool. And especially in Vrindavan, you see that they eat anything. So, and they also have procreate, or one doesn't procreate, but they have sex with anything, mother, daughter, son, whatever. I mean, we don't even know. I don't even want to go there. But that's the way pigs are. And so people in the material world are like pigs. They're living like pigs. Just I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. There's a certain nature that's in the self that we have to be aware of, become aware of. And it's not that we get rid of it in spiritual life either. We have to just regulate it, and we have to keep it constantly under surveillance. It's like there's a lot of talk about surveillance these days, but we have to have a surveillant aspect to us to see that we don't let the mind stroke body dictate to what we do. There's the three stages. There's the tongue, there's the belly, and there's the genital. And they're kind of like dictators, you know. They try to throw in the mix what we should do next. They give, why don't you do this? Or why don't you do this? Why don't you eat this? Why don't you go after that person there? Why don't you taste this, you know? It's in a straight line, the tongue, the belly, and the genital. So we have to be quite vigilant that they are not what are dictating to what we should do and what we shouldn't do. Basically, that's what we have. Krishna is speaking in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says how we should act on this planet. So most people don't even care about that. They just want to consume, basically. They're not even aware of a God. So I want to take one of my points that I've been working on quite a lot of late, and that is on this planet, like the whole consumerism is destroying the planet, as we've seen, even in the very way in which we get our food. Normally people would grow their food. I mean, that is the way it has been set out, is that people should grow their own food. But instead we have these mass slaughterhouses, mass food chains, mass consumerism, so that where do you get your food? I get it from Dunn's or Tesco or Lidl or SuperValu or Aldi. That's where we get our food from, you know. How did it get there? I don't know. I just buy it and I eat it. And basically that type of ignorance is what is destroying the planet. Masses of plastic, packaging, you know, fertilizers, antibiotics, food enhancers, artificial food. All of this is going on. Whereas our Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada in France was one of the places, New Mayapur, where he explained that we should live very, very simply. So this is what I neglected to do. Basically, when I went to Inishrat back in '92, I wasn't much of a farmer anyway at that time. We had some cows. When we did do some growing, and we still do some growing, but in fact, it has accelerated a lot more now there in Inishrat. Thank you to certain devotees, Radha Madhava Prabhu, Madam Mohan, Vaida, Mitra Hari, his good wife. No, so many devotees there are what to speak of, Prahlad, and Anandamaya, all the growing that they've done there, Malati Priya, you know, all the growing that's been going on there. It's a great testimony to those devotees who are taking this message very seriously. But it's probably you know, it's a bit late, but better late than never, as they say. We still opened up some restaurants in Dublin. We also did preaching programs from Dublin. So you know, it's all starting to come together. Basically, we're trying to join the dots. Krishna has been encouraging us in different ways. So he's giving us this opportunity now to bring people from this particular very ignorant state that's been so much in the consumerism, but to actually start to hear and to think about what we're actually doing on this planet. So it's not only philosophically, but it's also practically. One of my main spiritual mentors, His Holiness Shiva Ram Swami, walking up, I repeat this quite a few times, walking up from Geglum, from the boat quay up to the top of the hill. I remember him turning and saying, you can't eat philosophy, you know. And of course he went to Hungary not too long afterwards and helped establish a very stable food chain there, where people are living very simply and also off the land. And in fact, governmental agencies are going there to find out how they do it. So they're becoming the teachers, which is what the Brahmins should be doing anyway. But anyway, we have a bit of a long way to go, but we are on the map. We have the in Dublin, we have the restaurant by Krishna's grace. We can get that back up and running again soon, and that will be hopefully a generator, so that people will understand how they can actually eat properly and eat more simply again. We're not going to get everything right straight away, but let's get one bit at a time, and then we can actually have even schools and colleges even coming to Inishrat there to see the growing that we're doing. It's said now that in the UK that so many of the schools and colleges, they're doing forest trails and agricultural trips, and that's the way that the actual kids are starting to learn. They're actually real learning going on, because this type of learning is more important than all this stupid learning that they've been doing, that ended up with them destroying the planet. Great, brilliant people at making money and so on, but what do? They just accumulate more than and they destroy the planet. And Radhanath Swami, His Holiness Radhanath Swami, one of the points that he made is this: the pollution that's there is the pollution in the heart. This is where we're educators. We're meant to be doing this type of activity for people in general. So we have to become relevant for people. We have to be there so that people can actually then eventually turn to us. We have to be pure ourselves. As we know, as I said, Krishna is appearing through the chanting of the holy name. So we have to become extremely expert chanters. And then we have to practically demonstrate our lifestyle, which is sattvic and which is most conducive to people taking up spiritual life. Okay, that's the first stage. The second stage is people who start to develop impersonalism. It is huge amounts of people just don't believe that God exists. I mean, today, ultimately, we should just be going out with a big placard and saying, your problem is that you're not putting God in the center. You're stealing from nature. It's not yours. You don't own it. This was already set up by God to give you whatever you needed. It's fully there. But you're just neglecting God. So put God back in the center of your lives. But most people, they hear the word God and they go the other direction. I mean, that's only my impression, but maybe it's a wrong impression. But definitely the media have that anyway. They're not interested in any deity or any creator or source of everything. The source of everything. Well, science is the source of everything. And this is where this kind of impersonalism comes from. This whole idea that we can actually work out what's actually going on. They cannot imagine there's a transcendental body, because their own experience in this life, in this body, has been painful. It's as a person, we experience pain, there's suffering. Why? Because it was set up that way. You just have to have the knowledge. You stop trying to expect. Don't be expecting. Reduce your expectations. A lot of problems happen because people have false expectations, and this second class are in that category. They have false expectations of what to expect in this world. This place is Dukkhalayam Shashvatam. It is full of misery and it is temporary. So you're not meant to be ecstatically happy here. Although you can be, as I said earlier, you can be if you bring the kingdom of God back on earth, which you can do by this simple process of chanting Hare Krishna everywhere, spreading it everywhere. And then people, by that chanting, they will be liberated. Those who call on the name of God will be free. It's in all the religious scriptures. It's there, very clear. So this second class of people, because they don't then, when they see their difficulties as being a person, they think that this must have happened by chance. There was some collision and there was a big bang which happened afterwards, and now we're spreading out, and therefore there's it's up to us to try to sort the thing out. Yeah, it's up to you guys. I mean, look what you're doing, sorting the thing out. You're destroying the planet. But still, philosophically, people still think the same thing. They're unable to take direction from the Shastra or from spiritual people, or even the spiritual people that they take shelter of are equally blind. The blind leading the blind into a ditch. But anyway, the reason that they choose impersonalism and people who talk about impersonalism, and it is actually, we should say it is a bona fide process. It is a way of understanding God, but it's understanding God's energy, and it's just typical of the whole state as you go in and you pilfer and you use and whatever, and then you don't acknowledge. There's no appreciation that it is Krishna who's actually given us everything, but we just take all the products of nature and then we start to pontificate as scientists. So this is what happens. They start to say that there's an impersonal nature, and that's the God, and so therefore there's no real happiness. There's no eternal happiness that's there, we're like bubbles, and when we go to the ocean, and then we just merge. We merge. You merge, I merge, we merge. You know, it's like it's a painful symphony, and it's like people going to the end of a waterfall. Everybody together. Let's all merge, and although the reasoning behind it is because there is suffering in the world. I mean, who here has not experienced suffering? If you haven't experienced physical suffering, you've certainly experienced mental suffering, because this place is full of anxieties. And but it's where you take the shelter is the point. And so this second class, they think that by the end that they merge into nothingness, then they will be fine again. That's what we're meant to be here for. The third class are the people who just have heard so many answers and are just fed up. They don't want to hear any more answers. They don't believe in anything. They just sit down and they take some cannabis, peyote, alcohol, wine, whiskey. Sorry for polluting the atmosphere, because I know this is being broadcast in the temple. But they just pollute the whole atmosphere with their mindless rant and raving, coming from this this so-called vision that they get. You know, they're all visionaries suddenly, and these visions are taken by others to be great understanding of life. I was listening to one of the I was reading this morning about this artist. I don't know if I should say his name, but late 18th century, late 19th century, 20th century French impressionist painter, and he had huge mental problems, but they were marveling at his artwork. As I say, they're not, as per se, not making any comment. The fact that he had this mental difficulty, we know that's very much on the rise at the moment. It's very difficult to try to settle oneself in this world, because there's so much happening, so many waves of forest fires, typhoons, COVID-19, lockdowns, just so many difficult relationship problems, and you know, it's not a problem. This happens, but they were glorifying his kind of wonderful visions, which were pretty much induced by mundane love affairs and mundane courtships with alcohol and things like that. So, and I also mentioned in the class yesterday famous Irish writers who basically got their inspiration from, Guinness is good for you, and etc., etc. And people thought they were great people. In fact, they studied them in universities. But this is my point, is that the universities should be our temples and our farm communities. They are the universities that Prabhupada wanted to set up. He even said that people would flock to these places. So we have the very, very enviable task of actually trying to establish those. We're very early on in our movement, and sometimes things take a little while to happen. It's all happening under Krishna's time. You can't force it. He's the controller. He's the person who's dictating when all of these things happen. But we know that Krishna is in control, just like it says, Yada Yada Hidamasya Paritranaya Sadhanam Chaduskritam Vinashaya Chaduskritam. And one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activity. So Krishna is appearing now. So we have to get on board with this. Prabhupada gave a very clear vision of how these things are going on. So we're trying to kind of get hold of Prabhupada's vision. And the more that we can become purified in our daily sadhana, each person individually, and each group of individuals, the more that they can actually have sattvic relationships, then there is more possibility of performing this task and making this a much, much more habitable planet in which to live. And it means that we will be able to bring more and more people on board the train going back to the spiritual world. We just keep on adding carriages as we go along, and we just become part of this process. So those three different types of people: the person who's just too materially engaged, absorbed to worry about anything; the other person who's just so fearful because of having the experience of being individual has been so bad that you're just trying to merge into something at the end; and then the third class who just don't want to hear anything, just want to take some intoxication and pontificate away, and that's how they want to live their lives. So, no, we have a different process. And this process is next explained in this next section here. This is quoting from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Tuesdays and Thursdays for the next many, many weeks, we're going to be reading from the summary study of that book, which is translated by Srila Prabhupada, The Nectar of Devotion. So every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 o'clock, you can join us in the reading of that. It is on a Skype call, basically. We contact by Skype. So get in touch with the temple, and you can get in touch with that. So here's the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1, 4, 15 and 16. The science of devotional service. Ada shradho tato sadhu sango tabhajana kriya tata narto navritishyat tato nishta ruchistata ata shaktis tato bhavas tata prema byudanchati sadakantam ayam premna tvadurbhava bhavetkrama. In the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachment, attains steadiness and self-realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in bhava, or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love of God is called prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. So Prabhupada says, in the prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So by the slow process of devotional service, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being freed from all material attachment and from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality and from the frustrations that result in void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. So that's where we really want to go. That's where we want to be. We want to start getting rid of these anarthas, and this is what's been spoken about, being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me. Many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So we're trying to get from that stage, from a little faith in Krishna consciousness, then to practicing regulations under the guidance of the spiritual master, and then by ridding ourselves of these things and becoming fixed and having some taste, one starts to develop love, attachment, and then one becomes becomes an ecstatic love of Krishna. So somehow or other we have to surrender. This surrendering process is vital. It means that we don't think that we're the ones who are doing everything. This whole material civilization of the rugged individual, it becomes a thing of the past. We actually become the servant of the supreme individual, who is Krishna. Krishna is achieving so much in this world. It's all happening by his... Can you imagine if Krishna just stopped for one micro millisecond, everything would be finished. That's how powerful Krishna is. Not just one COVID, germ or whatever. It's powerful enough. We can see it's almost nuclear in its effect. But Krishna is just by one little stoppage, everything could finish. So that's the person that we're serving. That's the person who's in control. And we have to surrender unto that person. So what is that surrender? It means that we accept Krishna as the guardian, as the absolute guardian. we don't depend on anybody else or anything else. You know, we don't depend on anything. We just completely depend on Krishna. And it's incredible how we actually, it's explained that in the stages of chanting, that there's 3 different people there when we chant. There's God, there's the individual who's us, and there is the mind. So the mind is constantly taking us away from God, which is the holy name. So when we're chanting, we have to use the intelligence then to get the mind to bring us to serve God. But we're actually there. Ultimately, there's only us and God that's there, really. But we have to surrender unto Krishna. So at 2:00, His Holiness Satyananda Maharaj will be given the 5th stage of his absolutely incredibly compassionate goal in his whole life that he's been doing since I've ever met him, and that is to get people to chant purely. So all of our devotees are trying to get us to chant with proper empathy and love of God, and because that's actually where we will surrender. That's where we become the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. So this surrendering process, we hear in all of our books, in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, we hear directly from Krishna, and then in the Bhagavatam, we hear about the devotees of Krishna and how they've all surrendered and how they tried to surrender. We hear about Dhruva Maharaj, who was instructed by his spiritual master not to take seriously the insult by his father and his stepmother, who refused him to sit on his father's knee, and that he had to take birth again from her womb in order to get that privilege. So Narada asked him to, okay, just don't worry about it. You're only a kid. Don't be upset by it. But he wasn't able to. He needed another instruction from Narada. So okay, Narada said, go and study in the forest and perform these austerities and meditate on Krishna. And then eventually Krishna came, and then Krishna was going to gave him everything, jurisdiction over the planet for 36,000 years. He gave him. He satisfied his jealousy and his what would you say? His revenge, his spirit of revenge. Krishna was very liberal in that sense to Dhruva. Dhruva, of course, didn't want any of this. He understood what the problem was. But he wanted something, so there Krishna gave it. So, but then eventually he went back to the spiritual world because that's all he really wanted. And Prahlad, he was even a case apart, completely apart, because Prahlad was just, he didn't even think about, he was just completely surrendered to Krishna. He depended on Krishna for everything. I mean, he was going to be destroyed by, thrown off a mountain, fed poison, sent into a pit of snakes, beaten left, right, and, he wasn't even afraid. He was fearless. Prahlad was actually fearless. These things happened to him. It's not that I gave the example the other day about, being worried because there was a dog ran up to me, and I mentally got all angry and tried to do something to the poor dog, who wasn't angry at all, by the way. It was my mind suddenly went onto it. But here's Prahlad. He's so fearless that these things are actually happening to him. People are coming at him with, weapons and poison, throwing him off cliffs. And he's only, where's Krishna? He's not even worried by it because he knows Krishna's protecting him because he's surrendered to Krishna. And Krishna has to go and save him, but Krishna wants to do that. So at the very end, he appears from out of a pillar and absolutely demolishes the person who's been giving him all the trouble. Because you can't insult it, you can't do anything to a devotee like that. It's Krishna won't allow it. So that's how Krishna is our protector. That's the levels we have to get to. Other examples of surrender, of course, we have Bali Maharaj, who's the grandson of Prahlad. He had he was in charge of all the worlds, and yet he just gave them all back to Krishna, because that's he surrendered everything, because he could understand that this was God. He understood who it was, even though he was in the body of a demoniac person. He was the head of the demons, and yet he's considered the greatest devotee. Then there's Chitraketu, who's another demon, who surrendered everything to Krishna. He was in this fight with Indra, the demigod who was supposed to be the example for us. But Indra was so attached to his wealth that he actually killed one of the demons, and they sent this great demon who happened to be Vritrasura to try to destroy him. But Indra then knew how to kill this demon by severing his head. But because Vritrasura was a devotee as well, was very much a devotee, he was actually telling Indra to get up and perform his duty and kill him because he's a devotee and he's supposed to do what Krishna tells him. So he was more of a devotee. So we in other words, we see all of these levels of surrender in the Bhagavatam. We have Dadichi, who gave his bones, who gave up his life because they needed it in a ceremony to elevate the devotees from this great danger that they were involved in. So he was ready to surrender, basically. So we have all different examples of surrender in the Bhagavatam like that. But Krishna says, give up all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. And we know what that surrender is in this age is actually it's practical activity in the foreground of spiritual life, is to go and to give the holy name to everybody, just to give the holy name to people. And that's how we surrender to Krishna in this age. We surrender to Lord Chaitanya. So we perform all these nama yagyas, we perform all these kirtan melas, festivals, mantra yoga. We do everything. We do it online. We have the pandemic kirtan. Supriya's doing the kirtan on Fridays. We just try to fill the world, fill the sound bites only with kirtan. I'm not going to have time to speak about the other verses, which is, O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine energy. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. And then he says, always chanting my glories, endeavouring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So endeavouring with bowing down, and there's always chanting his glories and always conversing about him as well. I think that's another verse, isn't it? Anyway, there's another verse where they're always speaking about me. I'll find that verse again. But this, as devotees, this is our, you could say it's our birth, right? But this is how we surrender to Krishna. We don't fight. We only fight Maya, we take any of the energy that we have that is negative, we just try to channel that sublimation into keeping Maya at bay, because Maya is very expert, like these things, attachment, fear and anger. Maya just doesn't come and give us a carte blanche and say, there you go, oh, you're a devotee, oh good, carry on there, you're trying to be a devotee, that's great. No, she'll do everything to try to obstruct the path, our path. Look what she did to Prahlad. Just look. Hare Krishna. So whatever listeners were there before, I'm sure there's even less now. But anyway, thank you for listening, whoever is there. Maya is just trying to stop that point I was making there. She's, it's not that we have a carte blanche then just because we decide to be devotees. That's in fact, that gives Maya more focus on us and tries to focus on us basically and give us a harder time. But Prabhupada says that the association of devotees will protect us from this. Yeah, the association of devotees will protect us. So one straw you can break, but many straws together, not very easy to break. So that's where we have to be. That's where we have to get to. We have to not fight among ourselves, and we have to cooperate together. Those two things, don't fight among ourselves and cooperate together. humility, pridelessness, tolerance. All of those things are so, so important. Very, very important. So that we can let this surrender energy flow through us, and so that we can get in front of as many people as possible chanting the holy names. Because there's so much practicality about living in this world. I just want to get back to that point that Shiva Ram Swami made, because how it's important to organize ourselves in society, and that we're all kind of performing our duties accordingly as we are gifted. The Varnashram system is there already. It's functioning in society. But we just have to gather together to function together on it. No one's more important than each other. But the Kshatriya, he organizes society in such a way that we can actually live peacefully in this world. And then the mercantile people, they look after the cows, they perform all the business. And then we have the workers. Like, you cannot...
We're not getting...
What?
We've no connection.
We've no connection?
Well, we don't.
Okay, so it just cut out there, did it?
Let me check.
Okay, it's fine, Joyce. It's on Krishna Temple anyway. Or sorry, Dublin Krishna Temple. Can you check Dublin Krishna Temple? Are you checking that on Facebook, Joyce? A slight glitch anyway. Hare Krishna, I'm actually nearly finished now anyway. It's the talk was on till 2:00, and so I think I'll just finish by again the Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original supreme person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma or great soul develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted to the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form or of a demigod or a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. And Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dritavrita namantasya chaman bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So, okay, I'll stop there. Thank you very much for listening. So many different topics we could have gone on there. So hopefully we can meet up again soon, and please give me your blessings and prayer with me to say Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripasindueva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.